Abuse in the sporting arena has been existent for decades, but it is only recently that sports people have been brave enough to speak out. But it's most often too late. The price has been paid by the victim, and the perpetrator has continued to abuse vulnerable sports people until caught out. 150 years plus in prison for Larry Nassar is a case in point. On Selingo Live, let's talk are two women who have been working on the front lines in trying to make the game clean and removing the monsters of harassment from the game. First up on Selingo Live, let's talk, we check out what the international sporting arena is like. Lilamani de Souza is a former national table tennis player, and her love and passion for sport took her to Lausanne, where she is now on the executive board of the International Working Group for Women in Sport and an independent sports consultant. So in your experience, how bad is the physical and sexual harassment of sports people globally?
Sport reflects society in general. So physical, sexual harassment and abuse in society and how the way people are protected or not protected in society would be reflected in sport. And yes, given all the horrendous examples that we have of harassment in sport, the big examples, and we don't know the rest that is not even talked about, it is really a serious issue, which sometimes even can lead to death.
For a sports person, training is grueling at the best of times, especially if you're in the big league. Now, where does this training actually stop and the abuse begin?
It's part of the culture of sport. It's a part of the culture of governance, because people close their eyes. Obviously, people are closing their eyes to things that are happening because there's not one perpetrator. There are many. Very often, it's a group thing, and training stops, I guess, when people fall, leave sport or they get depressed and some, end their career. But harassment and the consequences of harassment and suffering goes on forever, unless there is some sort of justice or, you can talk about it or get rid of what is happening. So it's a very tough, it's a very difficult situation. Also, there's a taboo around it. It's shameful. It's you don't talk about it, and of course, if you talk about it, you lose your position in the team. It's an awful thing. So it has to be. We have to look at it from a governance perspective and ensure that there is good governance and people really take this seriously before it becomes too late.
For a sports person who's actively pursuing a career, is the system strong enough to make sure that they get justice if they do whistleblow?
I think whistleblowers, for example, in sport, should be protected. Whistleblowers it has a negative connotation, but a whistleblower is someone who's trying to change something, do something good. And I think the systems are not strong enough because these things have not been taken seriously. It's sort of new. It's not an old topic. It's not a new topic. But the way we are taking action now is relatively new, because if you look at sport until the late 1990s and early 2000s, very few sport organizations had put in place systems and structures to respond to complaints about the behavior of adults or young adults.
Is there redress for all genders equally? And I'm talking about LGBTQ people as well.
It's all linked, isn't it? If women don't have a voice, if male athletes can't come out and speak about it and we don't talk about it, so you can be sure that LGBTQ athletes who are even more vulnerable do not, get a lot of attention. So if you have societies that are, not there, LGBTQ is an issue, you can be sure that those athletes are not protected well enough. You see what's happening even with someone like Caster Semenya, who's different, at Duty Chand, who are asked to artificially bring down their testosterone levels so that they are more female. This is for me, a kind of abuse as well. So no, there is really no redress for all genders equally. And this is a way we close doors to many young people who lose all interest in PAP and sport.
And so we need to remove harassment from the game. And that's exactly what the National Olympic Committee decided to do. With a strong campaign titled Harassment is No Game, the NOC now brings out a safe space for sports people to be open about any form of abuse. Chairperson of the Women's Committee of the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka, Nilu Jayatilaka, joins in on Selinko Live. Let's talk.
I believe that like any other country, Sri Lanka too faces sexual harassment and abuse and all forms of harassment in sports. But it's just that we don't talk about it, or culturally we don't want to talk about it. So the campaign is all about creating that safety net and the safety environment so that our athletes feel comfortable in talking about it and coming out with kind of harassment. It could be physical, it could be sexual harassment, it could be verbal abuse, it could be in terms of mental abuse as well. So harassment comes under different spheres. So the whole campaign, Harassment is No Game, is about educating our athletes and also our school children to come forward and join sports so that they have a safety environment to compete and reach for those medals.
The sporting arena has for long not seen justice for these crimes. Hopefully, this is now a start. Thank you Lilamani D'Souza and Nilu Jayatilaka for joining us on Selinko Live. Let's talk.